The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast, a weekly media commentary talking about traditional and digital media headlines and talking to the content creators out front and behind the scenes. Here is the King of Podcasts. There's quite a bit to cram into this Broadcasters Podcast. Let me give you a quick rundown of what we got going on here on the program. Thanks for being here. KOP with you. Make sure to go ahead and follow, like, share, subscribe. Look for everything that you need to know at broadcasterspodcast.com, or you can always go to my website, kingofpodcasts.com, that has everything that I do. If you want to get involved, you'll find everything that I'm doing in terms of my full-time commitments, what I'm doing, and so much more. Go ahead and check that out for yourselves. So we're going to get started off. First of all, we'll get in just a moment talking about BTS and the Billboard charts and the confrontation of chart manipulation on the Billboard charts. So members of BTS spoke with Billboard magazine this week, and they were confronted with this question, and they answered it. And we're going to talk about that, and we'll go into the whole deal of chart manipulation this year on the Billboard Hot 100 charts. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. The other story I wanted to bring up from last week was all the things that are going on with Hollywood and how the idea of streaming new movies at the same time as the box office releases, or streaming exclusively without putting them out to the box office, and how it was a bad choice. We have directors, we have movie stars that are all complaining about it. We're going to bring that up in a little bit later on in the program. Plus, we'll talk about how theater owners are also complaining about the same thing. We'll talk about that as well. So there's a whole lot when it comes to the movies, and how I always knew there was going to be some kind of repercussions, because I talked about it back during the pandemic last year. We were going to see some retribution, and something was going to come up. The consequences of going and moving all the movies back was one thing, but then choosing to try to not even put them in the theaters is another. And that's what's going to go on with that. Plus some other things when it comes to news media, new round of layoffs for Vice Media. We got that to come up and talk about on the journalism side. TikTok creators are starting to go more towards YouTube Shorts. We'll talk about that. And the decline of the newspapers continues. That's all coming here on the program. Let's see if I can get it all in within 60 minutes. So stick around. There's a whole lot to talk about. We're going to start now with a story about the Billboard charts. I'm going to take from a story real quick from 34street.com. A few months back, they wrote a story how the Billboard charts became a battleground for stans and label executives. So now, the reason why the BTS controversy came to be is because for 8 weeks, the song Butter became the number one song in the country. It was overshooting Good For You by Olivia Rodrigo. And as a result, Olivia Rodrigo never got to go and stay at number one for more than 1 week. Same thing for Kid Laroi and Justin Bieber's Stay. Well, actually, that song now is finally number one, but it took a while for that song to get up there because it had been waiting to get on the wings in that. Same thing for Ed Sheeran's Bad Habits, others like that, but that's what happened. And it's because BTS and their label and their distributor were able to go ahead and generate sales. Generating sales, not so much like it was when Taylor Swift had her new album come out, or when Ariana Grande had a new album come out, or Justin Bieber having a new album coming out, where they all used bundles. Things that would be whatever it is that these stands, as this story is saying, they were able to go ahead and get people to go ahead and buy the records and just buy multiple copies for whatever reason, because of some exclusive thing that's on, or some new version, some new deluxe version, some new deluxe album, whatever it might be, whatever it takes to create sales. Because Billboard, in the traditional sense of the charts, would value sales as important. Physical units were always the major catalyst of what made a chart song hit number one or chart very high. If it wasn't that, it was also radio airplay. But we know that streaming has changed, and Billboard has done as good a job as they can to try to continue to keep the streaming relevant and trying to move along and say, okay, YouTube views, streaming numbers, things like that, and trying to evaluate those into the algorithm that goes into the calculation, the methodology of the Billboard charts every week. Because for musicians out there, they need to worry about that. There's a reason why you'll see some songs, if streaming and real gauging of the public, whether it's the counterculture or the mainstream culture, knowing that music, the popularity of the music can be weighed correctly, and that we really know what songs make it to the top 100 songs of the week around the country. And however they make it here, whether it's somewhere around the world, whether they're coming out of TikTok and they're just some SoundCloud artist out of nowhere just getting a song. You see songs that break into the Hot 100 all the time. But if we had a real good indication and the possibility that it's not just independent art, that independent artists would get a chance to get their songs to chart and get the opportunity to become something bigger. And so that they're the control of the top 4 major music publishers are not the only places to go to get music published and to get music charted and to get music sold and to get artists to be performing on stage because of the success of their music. So this story talks about that each week a new winner prevails. The cost up to $100,000. Even Evan Kiang writes this story from June 30th. He says, if you said the name Olivia Rodrigo just 7 months ago, only a few heads would have turned. He talks about her semi-viral hit from High School Musical, the series, All I Want, becoming an overnight sensation. Her first solo track, Driver's License, all the stars aligned to create a hit unlike any other. A massive TikTok following, viral memes, and endless praise, catapulting the song to the top of the Billboard Hot 100 charts for 8 straight weeks. That's how we started 2021. Then 8 of her songs would land on the chart from her album Sour. And really, every song reached the top 30 of the Hot 100, which is really, since the streaming services have been able to get their analytics included, that is one of the best things about listening to that Billboard Hot 100 chart, especially when you listen to it on Spotify. When there's a new album and it's something that's hot, every song's going to make it up there. And then you get a chance to sample every song on that record. The ones that are most popular. I think that's a massive thing. Or some songs might not make it all the way to the top. And I like all of that. It's still a true representation because we don't have to wait for singles. And then really, that kind of information is great for radio airplay. If you want to know what songs you need to be pushing as singles going forward, you find out because of that. So based on the statistics that were given about how well Olivia Rodrigo's first single and her album performed, it would seem that Billboard accurately represented Rodrigo's trajectory from a Disney star to a global pop sensation. See, that opportunity right now, she's got the Disney backing. She has quite a bit of popularity already leading up to this, but kind of a nobody to mainstream America, to everybody. Like, I never paid attention to Disney Channel, nor would I have known about Olivia Rodrigo. I heard about the shows that she was on, but I would have never watched that, not my age group. But all of a sudden, she comes out of nowhere and an instant pop star. That's something we need more of, instead of all these manufactured pop stars or rappers or whatever there is. Now, one would expect even a stronger performance on the charts, except this time, Rodrigo would have competition in BTS. When her song Good For You, her third single from the album, became even bigger than Driver's License. And breaking some of the exact records that Driver's License set just a few months prior. So her songs were just getting better as going on. But then you're telling me that this juggernaut that was Olivia Rodrigo with her music, which if you look at the official charts in the UK, okay, Driver's License, if I'm correct, did last 7 weeks on the chart. And I believe it was Drake that knocked her off the top. And I think that's what happened here, too, with What's Next. What are you going to do? And then I think it was BTS that knocked her off the chart from her third single that went up. And Deja Vu was a good song, but it did not hit as high as it did. But it's very consistently top 10. It's been like that the whole time since its debut in the Hot 100. But now, Good For You still remains as a song that's very strong on the chart, still top 10. But when you look at the UK, the song lasted, I think, 4 weeks, or I think 5 weeks at number one, and was replaced by Ed Sheeran's Bad Habits, which continues to be the number one song there. Now, when it comes to BTS, here in America, BTS would then, the sales figures would be so strong, over 130,000 sales of their units, or over 100,000 units of their in sales every week, in order to make themselves deemed well enough to be number one. Now, if you look at the same thing going on, it's the promotion of the record label. Because if you look at what the UK has, which is a much more representation, a pretty good representation across the board of what's popular music in the UK. With no push for sales, BTS did get their song, I think they got Butter up to number 2. And it stayed up there, and I think it will stay top 10 for a couple of weeks and then drop right off. Permission to Dance landed top 20, and that's it. But they got on the charts because of their streaming. There was enough popularity for BTS to be noticed. The song Dynamite last year did not hit number 1. I don't think it did, but it was top 5 for a long time, and it stayed on the chart for a long time. So BTS wasn't being held back, but for whatever reason, there's a contention about what happened here with her song right now and just what's happening. So here it is. Now, BTS's history with Billboard is complicated. In 2018, their album Love Yourself, Tear, was their first number 1 album on the Billboard 200, the first for any K-pop album at the time. Collaborations with Western artists, including Halsey, Lauv, Charlie XCX, performed relatively poorly on the Hot 100 for such a popular boy band. A number 1 was their ultimate aim, and it would take 2 years after their all-English Dynamite that would top the charts. Dynamite had all the ingredients for a smash hit. Catchy, a colorful music video, heavily played on radio, but radio took a little while to get to it. Even with BTS right now, I've been talking about that BTS was something that radio needed to get behind because of the stands that they have. The BTS Army, to get them to be engaged in radio would be so important, but they're not doing it. I don't know why. Because maybe the group can't make their way over here. They can't give the proper promotion to come to America and, do concerts or do events for these said radio stations. I don't know. It could be that. During the song's trekking week, BTS released remixes, offered discounts, and sold vinyls and cassettes. Relied on their fan base to purchase, stream, and share as much as possible, and it paid off when the group finally achieved their elusive goal. But then it would continue that. Now, the song Butter, same thing happened again. So BTS would take advantage of every tool available to them. Instrumental versions, the physical editions. And other artists did the same thing beforehand. Taylor Swift putting a number 1 song up. Travis Scott relying on remixes, bundled sales, and excessive promotional campaigns to add a number 1 to their discography. But what made Butter so controversial is that based on most metrics, Good For You was undoubtedly the most popular song in the country. Simply put, Butter was a top song for just the BTS Army, who spent over $100,000 in digital sales to boost the song. To the general public, Good For You was the clear winner, even if it was number 2 on the Hot 100. And that's what I said. If you look at every other chart around the world, Good For You was number 1, BTS was not. They didn't even chart number 2. But in the U.S., they took control of the manipulation of Billboard because they did. It's not BTS, the group, that did it. Let's just make that clear. I'm not blaming them. It's their record label that did it. And there is a lot of credibility to say that BTS is a formidable pop group that is able to put songs up on the charts, and they do well. But it's an army that listens to the music, and they're the ones that are going to be standing by the most. Sure, sales can be there, but they don't need to count as much. Streaming needs to count more on the Billboard Hot 100 charts anyway. Sales should still be somewhat significant, but there should be a bit of a change on how the sales are calculated. And I think radio airplay needs to be significantly less. Let's just be honest. I know they've been making changes. Even in the story, when they talk about the remixes, bundle sales, and excessive promotional campaigns to make a song number 1, Billboard's been trying to counteract on it. They always do. When things change to the sales figures going from your conventional sales to digital sales, using SoundScan back in the 90s, and then going on and doing other things where they made changes. I mean, you could see where things were making differences. With so many recent misleading chart toppers, Billboard was determined to revise the rules. 2020 had a record amount of number one debuts, indicative of a year with weak hits, powered by initially high but rapidly declining interest. So Billboard then stopped declaring an end to tour and merchandise bundles in order to control the chart chaos. And this is the first step that Billboard had to resolve its long-fought war with its own charts. Now, back a little bit of history they bring up here. When the Billboard charts were first created in 1936, there was no such thing as digital sales or streaming. The main driver of chart positions was the number of physical shipments. Different from the number of physical sales used today, because sales are measured by public consumption, while shipments are measured by a manager's willingness to invest in sales and promotion. Therefore, rather depending on the fans, label groups took it upon themselves to obtain the highest positions. And what companies could do was ship out tens of thousands of albums to record stores, regardless of whether or not they thought fans would buy them. Even if they recorded net loss, a number one was seen as much more valuable and profitable. So there's always been some kind of a rigging here, and Billboard, all they could do is recalibrate their formulas. They did that for the digital times when iTunes rose in popularity, including both digital and physical sales in their calculations, ushering the return to a fan-driven market. Because of their massive fan base, this is where BTS could shine the most. Well, the recent addition of streaming chart exploitation has become even easier. Instead of promoting songs, labels would just plaster them on the most popular playlist for the maximum number of streams. And Billboard has drastically changed that throughout the years, but manipulation has remained a pressing issue. So if Billboard fails to be a good measure of an artist's success, who should replace it? And one suggestion is to consider revenue instead of sales. Revenue-based charts have already been implemented in other countries such as Germany. Streams per dollar conversion clear, prevent the intentional use of discounts, and reduce the impact of excessive radio play. I like that idea. And maybe they'll do that someday. While fans would still be able to find the ideal tactics to artificially increase a track's position, this type of chart is more transparent and more representative of a song or album's popularity. At the end of the day, charts are merely portrayals of calculated statistics. They can never truly quantify an artist's connection with their fans or the quality of their music. And they talk about having fans and label executives stop putting so much focus on them. Charts can be used to flaunt an artist's accomplishments, but not everyone number one translates to the next 1989, Teenage Dream, Scorpion, or Divide. The dream of smash hits and long-lasting albums is tainted with fraud, deception, and controversy. That's what this 44th Street... I should have looked for this story sooner, but the reason why we bring up the story is because BTS actually spoke about it. And of all people, Billboard magazine did a feature story, full spread, and a feature story on them, and spoke to BTS. I'm going to take a story from Teen Vogue. So in the cover story of Billboard magazine, the members got candid about the ever-mounting, overwhelming, according to V, pressure that comes with many of their milestones, discussing their years of hard work and the toll just taken on their youth. So without going into the details there, I want to get to the part that it's important. So as their fan base has grown steadily and then dramatically, so has their chart position. Dynamite, their Savage Love remix, Life Goes On, Butter, and Permission to Dance have all hit number one on the Billboard Hot 100. And all tracks for a group that brought in 756,600 viewers across 107 regions for the 2020 Bang Bang Con The Live, earning the biggest global audience for a paid virtual concert ever. Now, Billboard, a music industry-focused publication, asked the members about the online accusations that ARMY is manipulating the charts through mass buying, through which leader RM shared some thoughtful words. I like what he said here. He says, quote, "It's a fair question. But if there is a conversation inside Billboard about what being number one should represent, then it's up to them to change the rules and make streaming weigh more on the ranking. Slamming us or our fans for getting to number one with physical sales and downloads, I don't know if that's right, but it just feels like we're easy targets because we're a boy band, a K-pop act, and we have this high fan loyalty." Man, that's just perfectly said. He gets it. He knows what's going on. And this is the other thing that's indicative of the BTS fan base, the ARMY, and how BTS is, I mean, for them, they know it's crucial. on the interaction they have with their fan base, even with the pandemic, not being able to go to concerts and be able to interact with their fans. And what they've done with them has really worked out. It's been really smart. Now, BTS fans are far from the only fandom to leverage their collective power to support the artists they love, though they are the most organized. Now, Teen Vogue actually says that whether you agree with ARMY's ways of showing support or not, it ultimately seems to come from a place of pride and one to see your favorites succeed in a market that has seldom recognized non-English speaking artists. Isn't one foundation of music wanting to share with what you love with other people, to help them feel the way you feel? Then Jin, part of the group, actually talked about his BTS's passion for performing, how it got them through difficulties back in 2018. Quote, I don't know if I should say this, but we said, screw the agency, screw everything. Let's just put our faith in the members and the fans and start again. Because they left the original management, I think it was. I heard the story, but I never got the whole thing about it. But I give them credit. Listen, they didn't bash away from that question. They didn't say anything about it at all. They were just fine. And I agree with what they said. And this is where Billboard needs to confront the fact that they need to make their changes and make them known, because they can do better with what they're doing right now with the Billboard charts. Streaming is where everything is. YouTube views is where everything is. You're talking about really being able to go and calculate all those, because that's pure stats. Radio can manipulate the stats. You're talking about Spotify, Pandora, YouTube, mechanically driven. And you get so many different stats because of what's being aggregated from what's being consumed. You see that. And they make it very public, by the way. Radio, you can't find that. And the radio gets some kind of calculation that Billboard gives, but we know that radio, they're just going to manipulate because they're going to pick what they want to pick as music. They're always behind the times. As we've talked about, ad nauseum on this program, it will take sometimes 8 to 12 weeks for a song to finally make it to the top of their charts, or to finally start getting played, as that matter, because that's what they do. When there are certain artists that they are playing now, they're going to do that because they have a vested interest, because they are able to get promotion, they're able to get some kind of push for that, and that's what they're going to do. Like right now, Olivia Rodrigo, there's obviously Geffen Interscope is definitely on board with her now. But when Driver's License came out and when the album Sour came out, probably took a little while to get there. But now look what happens. When you look at the charts now and radio stations around the country, Good For You and Deja Vu top the radio station airplays around the country. Kid Laroi and Justin Bieber, just because Justin Bieber got on the record, that was enough to make Stay a popular album. When it comes to Doja Cat, you're seeing they're going to finally get behind her as an artist because Say So is such a popular song. And you could just see there's some kind of a appeal. She's getting on the right events. She's getting a lot of notoriety. And it took her a while to get herself off the ground, too. Ed Sheeran, major promotion by radio when he first put his song out, Bad Habits, with a forthcoming album on October 29th. So he's pushing hard. And Lil Nas X, same thing, because, it's the success of Old Town Road and Coming to Here. And then you just see other songs that come in. So Jonas Brothers also being listed. The Weeknd, he puts a song out, Take My Breath, and it instantly goes top 10. Yeah, because look at what Blinding Lights did. Look at what Save Your Tears did. When you're talking about artists that are bona fide, that are definitely getting the listens, when those songs get played on radio, that's when radio is going to actually care, and they're going to push those songs. They're going to push those artists. They're going to find their pop stars and then push them to the moon. When Billie Eilish puts out her albums or her music, she gets pushed. That's what they're going to do, and that's how it all works. So even right now, Lizzo and Rumors already getting played right now. Camila Cabello's new song also getting played because of past history. You're talking about songs that made big hits before. With Camila Cabello, you have Havana, Never Be the Same. You got Lizzo, you got Truth Hurts, Good as Hell. Like, that's what they're going to do. Meanwhile, BTS Butter is right now number 18 among the media-based building charts for top 40, just so you know. they're not caught up in the sales because they don't get any money for those sales. So that's why they're not going to play them in the first place. Isn't that interesting? So I had double headlines on the program tonight. And now it's time to go into another extensive feature when it comes to the movies. There's a lot that's being said about where people are, about what happened with the movie theaters, and how the future of Hollywood, that really talked about the realignment of film and TV operations. And one story I want to bring up is what I meant to go and talk about last week. Scarlett Johansson's lawsuit with Disney. Let's bring that up right now. So a 19-page legal filing that was sent because she declared war on the Walt Disney Company. May 9th, 2017, there was a crucial amendment that was added to Johansson's contract to play the character of Black Widow in the Marvel Cinematic Universe for a movie franchise that has been incredibly profitable for Disney. The other date is August 8th, 2017, and that was when Disney announced they were going to launch Disney Plus. For industry in transition, the birth of Disney Plus, as said by Bob Iger on a conference call with Wall Street analysts, is a good marker for the transition that spurred a furious round of media mergers and acquisitions and a wholesale realignment of film and TV operations, which we've talked about on this program. Johansson's Marvel deal came here months before the plates shifted underneath the Magic Kingdom. As the aftershocks from those changes have spread across the industry, the benchmarks of success have been radically altered, but talent compensation packages didn't keep pace. It's very important. If you get the chance to get your movie in a box office and you know the kind of money you're going to be getting back in royalties for it, as opposed to streaming, which you will not get as much or at all, that's where the problem is. Jason Blum, the producer, Get Out, says, quote, "It's indicative of a larger struggle taking place in our business as talent shifts from one way of getting paid to another, from the lines, the numbers on the columns from one side to the other." In the era of streaming, back-end revenue streams are slowing to a trickle, while the salary demands of A-list actors are reaching astronomical heights. And the problem is the pinch is being felt right now by these Hollywood A-listers because some of the money is being put out in other promotional projects. As we've talked about, the influencers are taking over. The celebrities are becoming second rate. They're not as important unless they are doing their projects, unless they are acting, they are directing. If they're script writing or doing whatever behind the scenes or in front of a camera for a movie, if they're not doing that and they're trying to promote and they're doing other things, then this pandemic-filled Hollywood, that's not going to work. If they cannot be glamorous, doing award shows to promote themselves, then what good are they? That's the perception. They don't like that. Talent is grabbing as much as possible in the front end because the traditional route to aftermarket profits through syndication sales and international licensing is disappearing as conglomerates build content war chests to feed global platforms. The digital disruption has affected their pocketbooks. One of the ramifications of all the changes of the digital disruption and the pandemic, which truly accelerated this whole setup of digital content of all these major media companies, from their movies to television, they all changed. At stake, it's the future of how Hollywood stars negotiate their salaries and how much they can command. Already, insiders at the studios have long griped. Movie stars were demanding too much as the ability to attract crowds shifted from a handful of charismatic actors to properties like those of Marvel, DC Comics. Yeah, we don't get the single billing movie stars. We don't have those right now. They are a lot of universes, a lot of properties. That's what they're doing now. So Johansson filed July 29th in the Los Angeles Superior Court, which exposes the undercurrents of fear and uncertainty rolling in the creative community. But the way the drama has unfolded on the public stage also reflects the bare-knuckles business environment that has emerged as the industry battles the tiring effect of whipsaw revamping. Now, Disney sources said they were not given the courtesy of a heads up that a legal complaint was coming. And Disney would send out a statement talking about that they paid her up front $20 million for her role as Black Widow. And I guess this is in the franchise series. I don't know if it's just a single movie or it's all the movies she's been appearing in. So this time around, Disney's unresponsiveness is one of the issues that frustrates Johansson's team. Disney sources countered that the company has honored Johansson's contract because the pact did not call for an exclusive theatrical release. The studio argues that the film had a wide release, debuting in more than 4,000 theaters in North America, fulfilling the legal obligations to the actress. The dispute is on the definition of what constitutes a traditional theatrical release at a time when COVID scrambled distribution models beyond recognition. And sources were said that Johansson's representatives were simply asked to wait a few weeks to see how Black Widow performed at the box office and Disney Plus before determining a back-end payout. Now, so far, Black Widow had received, well, first of all, Black Widow, even with the pandemic, there was the extraordinary stuff that was made, which they've been doing with other movies, where they had releasing key tentpole titles day and date theaters. So releasing in theaters and at the same time simultaneously offering it on Disney Plus for a $30 download via Disney Plus Premier Access. Now, Johansson does get a cut of that revenue. That's something I didn't know about. But a significant point of the complaint is that the MCU titles generate bothful repeat theatrical business among Marvel fanatics. That's impossible if a family can download a title once for unlimited viewings. Right. So the initial showings, but then in perpetuity, all those movies are going to be, after they buy, will be able to be watched as much as they want. And that's what she's coming from about the royalties for that. Unlike DVDs or VHS back in the day. Now, Disney calls the Disney Plus move an innovative solution to content distribution at a time when traditional moviegoing is depressed by pandemic conditions. There's more to be brought up. You can go look at the link for yourself. But then they have the part where Black Widow litigation points to settlements to the tune of $350 million that Warner Brothers reached with creative talent earlier this year after making the bold step of mounting simultaneous premieres in theaters and on HBO Max for their entire 2021 theatrical slate. So they had to go and back pay all those artists and all these different people $350 million. Are they going to make that much on HBO Max for all their movies? And is that simultaneous release, is it worth it? Like, look at the headache it's brought. That's another part. Nobody's ever talked about that either. But that's more of what's going on here. Now, what are people getting right now? Because they're talking about the days when Jack Nicholson could command $60 million or more in profit participation for starring in Batman are gone. Streaming services are still offering massive paydays for talent willing to forego traditional theatrical releases. So now Daniel Craig, for instance, is going to bank $100 million to star in Knives Out 2 and Knives Out 3 thanks to a mega pact he signed with Netflix. Stars like Julia Roberts, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Jennifer Lawrence are earning upwards of $25 million to appear in movies for streamers, because Netflix and Apple factor in the box office back-end actors are sacrificing. So then you're losing these big box office stars to streaming. They'll keep doing movies. They'll go with the Netflix and Apples of the world and continue to do movies with them, when these could have gone well to theaters. Just on the fact alone that those stars are featured in those movies. You actually could have put them out in traditional theatrical release. Right now, this weekend, there's only a couple of movies that are coming out, released this weekend, wide release. And like this weekend, I'm not even watching anything new. There's one movie, I think Candyman is the only movie that's coming out wide release this weekend in the middle of summer. And you're telling me, oh, and then I'm going to go see Free Guy with Ryan Reynolds. That's a movie I forgot to watch because I got caught up in other things. So I'm going to watch that after all. I'll catch it tomorrow. But that's because there's no new movies to go watch. You're telling me not one of these movies with any of these other big stars, you could have put those out in the theaters and maybe they would pull pull some money out of it. I don't know. Very interesting about that. But that's also the other thing about the streaming services, where the quality of movies are getting a little bit better because they're not so much direct to cable or direct to TV like they would have been back in the day, or direct to video, where they kind of were given like that B movie quality, because the budgets are quite good for some of these movies and what these stars are working on. And then the paydays for them are just as good. Like, it's not what they're going to get on network TV or cable, but what they're getting from the streamers is comparable, because they know the money coming in now from theatrical movies, it's not as much as it used to be. Even trying to take on the back end of it, a percentage of the cut, there's not much of that going on. Now, later on to the story, the ability to command a rich profit participation was once the flashiest status symbol for all of creative talent in Hollywood, but some see an upside to the new model. Now, profit participation payouts can be hard to collect, some going to the length of hiring forensic accountants to scrutinize statements for inflated studio distribution fees and overhead charges. So a film agent, under the condition of anonymity, says, quote, "Instead of chasing around after money, let's spend that time and energy making better movies. With streaming, back end was already going away. Front end fees make it easier to know where you stand." This story is so extensive, and they did such a great, but that's more variety of this, just do such a great job of going through all of this here. And so go ahead and check it out for yourself. The link is on the website, broadcasterspodcast.com, or when you're looking for this show, just look for the link and just grab it for yourself and check it out. Now, let's talk about the blowback that's been going on, not just through legal means by Scarlett Johansson's legal team. Let's talk about what other people, big names in the industry, have been talking about. Let's go to Patty Jenkins. And if you're familiar, she's the director of Wonder Woman 1984, which got launched December 25th, Christmas Day, in theaters and on HBO Max. And that was really weird. So my movie theater had not been opened yet, and I had to go and watch Wonder Woman Christmas weekend, like after Christmas, with Christmas weekend. And I'll tell you, I tried to watch it, and I know I must have disappointed. That movie disappointed me, because watching it from home just didn't have it. I mean, I set myself up with popcorn. I had my TV up, got a 42-inch screen. Hey, it's not bad. I got the ambiance in the room to keep it dark. And, you know, I got Bluetooth headphones, listening it through my Amazon Fire Stick, watching HBO Max. Got it. And it wasn't the same. I rarely watch movies from home. It's really hard to really catch a movie, and if it's a new movie that I want to catch and really get into, like I've tried to do for the Netflix movie, especially when we were in quarantine. I did watch quite a few movies, but it wasn't the same. It just felt weird. For me, I like going to the leather seats at my Regal Theater next door, getting fresh popcorn, getting a big drink, and just sitting there and watching with the crowd, getting the ambiance with it, and laughing and enjoying a movie going along. Even though I might catch a movie late at night, and there might not be many people in the theater with me, and sometimes I might be the only one in the theater on a late night showing at like 10:30 at night, and that's great. I'll take it. Not my fault that everybody else doesn't want to go to the movies, but I mean, I know that's not all the movie theaters, but mine's in suburban West Palm Beach, just a little bit outside of town, and there's only certain movies that are going to really draw people to the theater. So like when Fast and Furious comes in, yeah, they got people to show up for it. And I watched it there, and it was good. And everybody got all into it. It was fun. When Avengers Endgame a few years ago, when that came out, packed crowd, watched opening weekend, and I'll tell you, when Captain America grabbed the hammer, Thor's hammer, that crowd, same like everybody else, just went wild seeing that, and that was a fun time. I wouldn't have gotten that watching from home. So now Patty Jenkins talks about not a fan of day and date, and that the move with Wonder Woman 1984 was, quote, best choice and a bunch of bad choices. Let's talk about it. So this was going on at CinemaCon, which was held in Las Vegas, and Patty Jenkins was smashing the theatrical day and date model, wagging a finger at exhibition over the decline in movie-going experience. And when she was asked about the hindsight of Wonder Woman 1984 going theatrical day and date, simultaneous on HBO Max and in theaters, she exclaimed, quote, "It was the best choice in a bunch of bad choices at the moment and a heartbreaking experience." One of the first movies to go out as they decided, okay, we're going to put out the movie on HBO Max and in theaters at the same time. Now, box office capitals New York City and LA would remain closed. So there were not a lot of movie theaters to go out to. So Wonder Woman 1984 was one thing. But also they had to get something back on that movie. And they had pushed it back several times during the pandemic. One of the first ones to come back. So it only wound up opening to $16.7 million compared to it opening to over $100 million in the U.S. in 2017. Then the availability of the movie on HBO Max got the movie quickly pirated. The pick through 17 days was watched by 3.9 million U.S. terrestrial households per Samba TV. The DC sequel grossed $46.5 million domestic, $166 million worldwide. Quote, "I knew that could have happened." Quote, "I don't think it plays the same on streaming ever. I'm not a fan of day and date, and I hope to avoid it forever. I make movies for the big screen experience." And when she talks about if she would ever make a movie for Netflix, she says, "I won't make one." Meaning one with a short theatrical window that then segues to streaming. Quote, "I like working with Netflix for television. I wouldn't make a movie there or any streaming service with those terms. It's hard to market a movie when it has a limited run." So she's pro-theatrical, criticized exhibition on how the quality of the movie-going experience has waned in recent years, with auditoriums at 80% of their volume. And the diversity of content has plummeted, something that she said she blamed on studios, and the terms they wage for big picks and holding over. And making a shout-out to luxury dine-in chains like iPick for creating a first-class movie-going experience with recliners, waiters, and a blanket. Yeah, but she likes those kind of movie experiences. I don't care. I like the fact that I got the nice seats, and if I want to go and grab a drink, grab a beer, grab a cocktail, sure, those kind of things are fine. But I think all this other stuff, I'm trying to have food. No, I want to go somewhere else for it. I don't really need this, so that's my thing. One of the other people that spoke was Paramount domestic distribution boss Chris Aronson. And he said that, quote, "It's a fallacy comparing going to the movies to live sporting events. Live sporting events are a once-only experience. That experience quality should be the same. You can't compare the price of movie tickets to an NFL or NBA game. Pricing is an issue in our business. If we simply rely on large format pricing, attendance will continue to go down and down. We need to figure out how more people can go to the movies." And then one of the movie theater top brass talking about how they do $5 Tuesday popcorn deals. But yeah, I mean, there's one of the things is that, you know, the rewards plans for all these different movie theaters are good. Like AMC has a good one with A-List. The subscription plans, if you can do them for people like me that want to go to the movies all the time, it's excellent. So single people like me, or people that will just go and pay for their own movies and go out, it works perfect for them. But like for families, you got to make a better deal for them to go to the movies. That's what you have to do. And you have to do something where the pricing for the kids is not so much. You try to get the adults to go and buy. And then, you know, I know you're not going to make much money on the tickets themselves, but the concessions, remember there's some other things that you do to kind of help in the concession area to make more variety of what there is. I don't know if it's so much hot food or if it's something else, but they have it, whatever they can figure out. For me, I can't really say much about what to do to get families and other people to go to the movies. Like, the first thing that has to happen now is that all the movies need to come back. So all these widescreen releases need to come back so people can catch them. That's what's more important than anything else. So keep that in mind. Now, another person that also spoke was the National Association of Theater Owners, John Fithian, we've talked about as well. We talked about him when they were looking for some support or some help to get more people to go and get involved, right? There was that part. So that's another thing that's going to be talked about as well. That they were looking for help within the policymakers to help them with some support, some kind of, something with financial relief during the pandemic, which I don't know if they ever got or if they got anything at all from the PPP loans or the PPP program that was out there from last year. Now, one of the things he definitely said during his appearance at CinemaCon is that movie-going is not dead. So, speaking to a crowd of cinema operators at Caesars Palace, Fithian took a moment to praise the members of the creative community who have thrown support behind the big screen experience. Quote, "I applaud artists who refuse to accept the false narrative that movie theaters are a thing of the past and that the future will be one in which every movie is consumed at home. These leading creatives know better, and they're on the right side of history. This year's convention has been noticeably lighter in attendance as fewer studio executives, stars, and media members opted to make the pilgrimage to Caesars Palace. But either which way, he said that exclusive release periods remain vital to the survival and success of the theatrical experience, and that maintains that simultaneously opening a movie in theaters and on streaming isn't financially beneficial for studios or theater owners." So, NATO and Fithian have made no secret of the disdain for day-and-date releases. Movies like Black Widow, The Suicide Squad, and The Boss Baby Family Business premiered on their studios' respective streaming platforms on the same day as it debuted in cinemas. In July, after Black Widow dropped nearly 70% of the domestic box office from its pandemic-era record opening weekend, NATO fired out a statement blaming the movie's collapse in theatrical revenues on Disney Plus to make it available to rent simultaneously on Disney Plus. And let's just add the caveat, got pirated. All of you do understand that. Harder to pirate a movie theater, trying to record it in a movie theater. People don't want to watch it that way. But they can go ahead and catch it and they can put it digitally and upload it. They're going to watch it that way. We know that. Quote, "What the future holds is up to our members and distributors to decide. But let us be clear about one thing. Simultaneous release does not work for anyone. A steady flow of strong movies released with exclusive windows is essential to exhibition's recovery and to the profitability of the entire movie ecosystem." Cinema is not meant to exist on the same digital playing field as funny cat videos on YouTube or endless TikTok scrolling. He's right. Also, the fact he mentions that multiplexes are good for local businesses. What's a movie night without going to dinner first? He cited an Ernst & Young study commissioned by NATO that found in addition to the $18.3 billion spent on tickets and popcorn, quite a bit for me as well, they spent another $5 billion in 2019 on nearby dining and retail stores the same day they went to the theater. We will return to that level again, he says. That's where we are. And so far, the top domestic opening weekends since the pandemic started, Black Widow gets the best with $80.4 million domestically, F9 at $70 million, Quiet Place Part 2 at $57 million, Godzilla vs. Kong at $48 million, and Jungle Cruise, which is at $35 million. So movies were able to make money. And people are getting back to the movie theaters again, regardless of what's going on out there. Now, I need to go ahead and do an update to what happened, what I led off with last week here on the Broadcasters Podcast about OnlyFans. That the story has come out that OnlyFans is going to continue to allow, they're going to drop their ban on pornography. So let me bring that story up real quick while we get a chance. Thought this is very important. So less than a week after the UK content creator subscription site had announced a change, citing the need to comply with policies of banking partners. So now the company said, quote, "It secured assurances necessary to support our diverse creator community. They now have new agreements with banks to pay OnlyFans content creators, including those who share sexually explicit material. So, OnlyFans creators, you have been rescued. You thank your lucky stars that it happened. How about that? It was done. The company put out in a statement, quote, OnlyFans stands for inclusion, and we will continue to provide a home for all creators. They declined to say which bank or banks have its new payment processing agreements with them, but the October 1st, 2021 changes are no longer required due to banking partners' assurances that OnlyFans can support all genres of creators. Then they talk about the story that was coming up from the BBC about the interview with the Financial Times. Tim Stokely had been interviewed by them August 24th, saying that the banks had included JP Morgan Chase, Bank of New York Mellon, and the UK's Metro Bank had cut off OnlyFans' ability to pay creators. And the backlash among OnlyFans creators pushed the company to quickly resolve the problem. The decision to ban porn infuriated sex workers who have relied on the site to support themselves. In frustration, some adult creators have already nixed their OnlyFans pages and moved to alternate platforms. So, crisis averted. Thought that was actually a pretty interesting story to bring up right there for all of you. Very interesting that they were able to make that happen. So I got a few minutes left. Let's get to a few other stories. I'm going to get everything in. Wow. I had a lot of stuff I added in, and we're going to all in right now. So let's talk about Vice Media. A little bit of newspaper talk right now and publication talk. New round of layoffs in Digital Group and Refinery 29. A source familiar with the situation said that fewer than 20 staffers got pink slip cutbacks coming in North America from the Vice Digital and women-focused Refinery 29 groups. Vice News was not affected by the latest layoffs, and part of the thing might be from the unions. In a joint statement, the Vice Union and R29 Union, both of which are affiliated with WGA East, the Writers Guild, said that 17 staffers were laid off in, quote, what has been a macabre annual ritual at this company. The Chief Digital Officer, Corey Hake, for Vice Media, sent in a memo Thursday, and the layoffs were part of the company's focus on building content, quote, for our digital communities in the native ways they consume it. As part of this continued global alignment, we've unfortunately had to say goodbye to some of our friends and colleagues today. We wish them well and thank them for all their dedicated service over the years. Or, future endeavors. As me as a wrestling fan listen to releases by WWE, that's what they normally would say. Future endeavors. Best of luck in your future endeavors, folks. So that sucks for them. So there's part of that problem going on right there. Next, newspapers also struggling. Let's take it from MediaConfidential.com. And the story there about America's largest newspapers, they've lost 20% of their print sales. So they're trying to go ahead and counteract what they're losing with all that's been going on. And they're trying to work themselves out. So the top 25 largest newspapers have lost 20% of their weekly print circulation since COVID-19. This is from the Alliance for Audited Media. Newspaper circulation has been in decline for years, but this research suggests that the pandemic significantly increased the rate of decline. In the first quarter of 2019, 25 newspapers had a combined circulation of 4.7 million readers. It's gone down to 4.2 million, down by 11% in 1 year. Yep. There we go. And these newspaper brands have been switching much to their focus to building up a digital subscription business in recent years, being more pronounced over the past 18 months, but print remains an important revenue stream for the industry, both for circulation and advertising income. But all these are getting big fat paywalls, and they're all doing that as well. And that's what sucks too. Well, that's what they're going to do. One more show I want to talk about before we wrap things up. Hollywood Reporter put out a story about how TikTok creators are turning to YouTube Shorts amid an insane subscriber growth. So the platform, which mimics TikTok features, has given them more opportunity to rapidly build a following and monetize. That's because the creator program probably is offering a lot more money to go do that. And that's why. So one of the examples they talk about here is Alyssa McKay has 8.5 million followers on TikTok. One of the first creators to try out Shorts in February while it was still in beta mode. Started with 40,000 subscribers, gained back when she gained back when she started posting a smattering of videos, posting her Rich Girl videos, a POV style series first popular on TikTok, to YouTube. 6 months later, she already has 500,000 subscribers on YouTube, and her most popular Shorts video has more than 13 million views. Wow. Other creators, including Katie Feeney and Hannah Montoya, also with similar success. Montoya already has 3.8 million TikTok followers, gained 125,000 new subscribers after she started posting her POV videos to Shorts. Feeney, 6.3 million followers, already got 750,000 followers in 3 months. And there's something to be said about the YouTube following that you can have, because you can be doing YouTube content long form with the short form of YouTube Shorts. Brian Mandler, who is one of the co-founders of the Network Effect Agency, leading the Shorts experiment with McKay, Feeney, and Montoya, says building out a sizable YouTube subscriber base is the gold standard for creators aiming to make a living. Trust me, I've been trying. Stuck right now 153 subscribers. Really not much. But, I mean, my content's for a very micro niche crowd. Let's just say that. And so for me to get to the level I need to get to become an actual content creator to make money off of it, taking forever. Just saying. Quote, Madison Avenue at large really understands the value of a YouTube following and understands the value of a YouTube view. There's only benefit to having a really large YouTube following. Now, these creators who spoke to The Hollywood Reporter aren't leaving TikTok to post exclusively on Shorts, mind you. They're uploading original short-form videos to the platform, allows the creators to be eligible for a $100 million Shorts fund that will be distributed through 2022. That's why they're doing it, folks. In the first month of the fund, YouTube is sending invites to more than 3,000 creators across genres to claim payments, which could be as high as $10,000 a month. Well, they got the money for it. And that's how you got to get that brand to kick off the ground, the YouTube Shorts. Even when I go to YouTube, I haven't caught myself going to Shorts. Not myself, no. I haven't tried it yet. The fund is most similar to TikTok's $1 billion creator fund that will pay creators for the next 3 years. But Kevin Ferguson, a former TikTok executive who joined YouTube in May as its new director of operations and partnerships for Shorts, tells The Hollywood Reporter that the Shorts fund is just a stopgap until YouTube develops a long-term monetization and support tool for short-form creators that will be modeled after, but differ from YouTube's partner program. Quote, for traditional YouTube, the goal for us has always been to support creators and allow them to support themselves as a business, and that certainly remains true for Shorts. This is still the beginning. We think there's a huge opportunity to really see how this ecosystem continues to grow over time. That's promising. So keep that in mind and see where things go with all that. So yeah, the switch from TikTok to YouTube might have been a little deceiving on the headline, but that's okay because we learned the truth overall. That's what happened right there. And that's how this show is going to end. I really appreciate all of you listening in and checking out all the content. And I understand. This is a show that's not for everybody. I don't get the biggest audience in the world. And I do realize that with my stats, I can actually do some things where if I want to go ahead and branch out a little more to media content, there might not be so much digital disruption or much more of a base that I'm just talking about certain things. I could definitely go a different route and, not be so focused on the business of creating content, but then talk about the content that's out there that's really important and interesting out there. Be more of a, for everybody to listen to. I want to be able to make the show where it is something that people that might be laymen that just want to learn about the media industry. You come into the show, you learn a little bit about it, and you start getting a little bit learning of the lingo, understanding what's going on, the reasons why everything's done, why it's done. It's all important like that. And I'm enjoying it. I like reading about this all the time. And for those of you that decided to look in and subscribe to the show, I really appreciate all of you, each and every one of you, for doing that and checking out the show each and every week. I really do. So in the meantime, we're going to leave it there. Make sure to go and subscribe to the show wherever you find it. Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify. And please, till next week, remember that the content is king and the control of your content is in your hands.
Thank you for listening to the Broadcasters Podcast. Find all the links to subscribe to the show by going to broadcasterspodcast.com. And don't forget to check out the King of Podcasts wrestling program, the Wrestling is Real podcast, exclusively at wrestlingisreal.com.